I would like to go potentially, if it's okay with you. Lauren Conlin did an article in the LA Mag this week, and it was incredible. It's a different case. It's a new case of yours. And, just to throw some more credibility behind his back, that he does other cases. Duh. It's the Andrew Lopez case, and it was a 2011 murder case of a 34-year-old mother of 12, Zorana Horton. And you took this on, Mr. Bederow, because there is some fuckery afoot in that prosecutor's office, and the jurors were not provided crucial evidence of disclosures of payments that were given to eyewitnesses. Is this correct?
Yeah, generally,
Okay.
it's not something, not a new case.
Right.
It's a new filing.
Mm-hmm.
This thing has been brewing in the background for some time. It's been investigated over a period of time, and it came together through actually Freedom of Information Law, FOIL, not FOIA like Massachusetts. You have acts, we have laws. Where he did it from his prison cell. Started submitting FOIL requests, which really developed all of the evidence. But yeah, it was a 2011. It's a pretty well-known. If you're in New York at the time, it was a well-known horrible crime because of this innocent woman was killed. Two other people were shot in broad daylight in the middle of a busy area of Brooklyn. On a Wednesday afternoon, school's getting out. I mean, it's like the wild, wild west in the urban center. So it was a terrible thing. Trial was in 2013. Andrew and his brother were tried together. The theory was that his brother ordered him to do it. His brother was acquitted, by the way. But years later, it was determined that the so-called eyewitness, and the only eyewitness, which makes him the most important witness, who was a character, long criminal history, kind of a dodgy guy, multiple names, lies about this, lies about that. But what was not known at the time, and this was a common thing in Brooklyn, and I know we've talked about this in the past. You've heard me rant and rave about the Charles Hines Brooklyn DA's office and comparing it really to the Morrissey Norfolk DA's office. There was the closest comparison that one could ever find to that. In any event, the witness, it turns out, didn't want to testify before trial, but he did ultimately testify. He claimed that he was testifying for no other reason than doing the right thing. I'm a good guy, whatnot. And the prosecutor vouched for his credibility as, we need more people like him. There'll be less criminals like this other guy. And what the defense didn't know, the trial defense, the court, of course, and the jury, most importantly, didn't know, was that actually the man ultimately agreed to testify right before he testified because the Brooklyn DA made a written agreement with him and provided him with thousands of dollars of cash and other benefits, free hotels, moving expenses, storage fees in exchange for cooperating. All of this was suppressed from the defense. They were asked if they had any Brady material. They denied having any. And unfortunately, this kind of stuff happened back then in Brooklyn all the time. So yeah, we developed that evidence. It's filed, and we'll see how they respond. It is a different DA's office there now. It's very different than it was. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And they certainly take these allegations more seriously. And then we'll have to wait and see how they respond and go from there.
Yeah. Is there a feeling of, like, if you were to give me, not percentages because I know you can't, but like, is there like an optimistic feel because of the new office, like the new people that are in the DA's office?
You can't. I mean, I'm not going to predict how they
Right.
react. I mean, the bottom line is they didn't disclose the evidence. The evidence is obligated to be disclosed. They didn't do it.
Correct.
I can't fathom a situation in which they claim it was. I mean, the motion includes a sworn statement of the trial lawyer. I didn't get this, and if I had it, I would have used it. which is standard in these kinds of motions. That's why it takes a while to put these together. You have to find the lawyer, show them the evidence, show them, the trial transcript, refresh their recollection, and get them to explain to you what they might have done or not done had they known about it. Then, of course, in any of these situations, you often will have a DA argue that, well, even if we didn't do this, so what? He's guilty anyway, so it doesn't matter. And, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, they'll argue that the other evidence supports a conviction. And what we're simply saying is he didn't get a fair trial. And anyone who's charged with a crime, no matter how serious, awful the crime is, the person is entitled to a fair trial. That's it. Anyone. And it didn't happen here. So the ask here is simply for a do-over with a fair trial with full disclosure. And if this witness is going to testify for the DA, simply disclose the evidence that you are constitutionally obligated to disclose. Let the defense use it as they see fit. Let the jury assess his credibility with a full understanding of all of the problems with his credibility. And then they issue a verdict. And you know what? If it's a fair trial, the verdict is what it is. That's how the system's supposed to work. It failed here. That's not what happened.
Okay. Well, and how long have you been on this case, Mr. Bederow? It's not a new case for you. It is since how long? When did
Oh,
he get to retain you?
Yeah, it can be time. I mean, you have to review the whole transcript, all the evidence, learn. When people make FOIL requests, or FOIA again, depending on where you are, it takes time to get them. Sometimes you have to litigate. They don't want to turn over certain things. There are exemptions, exceptions. Then you have to, interview people. I mean, it can really take time. These aren't things that you just whip up and throw together 5 minutes after somebody calls you and says, listen, I got screwed. I didn't get a fair trial. You have to be confident in what you're arguing. But this one is, I mean, pretty straightforward. Any lawyer understands that if you give a witness money and other things that they want in exchange for them testifying as part of an agreement, a promise, an expectation, that has to be disclosed. I mean, that's lawyer 101. I think a 15-year-old child would understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do it here. And this is not a unique outlying case. If you go and see the other cases that were going on in Brooklyn at that time, this was a common thing. I mean, they even had a thing that we now know is called the Heinz Hotel, where they would put witnesses in hotel rooms and give them free hotel rooms and say, instead of going to jail for being a non-cooperative witness, we'll put you in our custody, which is really just a hotel room, and we'll say, you're in custody when you're not. This is what was going on in Brooklyn back then.
Yeah. And when did he retire or leave?
He was voted out in 2013.
Oh, 2013, yeah.
He was voted out in 2013, and he's been gone since, and he passed away maybe 5 years ago.
Oh. Wow, that's good. Well, I'll be following this, and I look forward to it. I hope that, as you always say, Mr. Bederow, there is certain things that is when it's 101, you're only looking for a fair trial, and all people, all defendants, no matter what, deserve a fair trial. That's our system. That is what our country is based on, our principles of law and order, and that is how trials need to go in order for us to continue this country, right, in the way in which it is supposed to, and the ideals in which we strive for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that was shocking to me. Also, sidebar, I just want to say, listen, guys, I don't watch the chat. You know this. I talk to Mr. Bederow. I'm going to tell you, come in here if you dare and talk wild or reckless to Mr. Bederow. I'm quick. I'm quick like a gazelle. You will be banned. You will be done. Do you hear me? Mr. Bederow comes here, joins us on his free time. This is our friend. And like all my mods, I love you to death. I'm on it. You're on it. Do not allow like another comment and then chat. Let's keep it rolling. Keep your good vibe. Enrique Delgado Garcia, huge revelation this week, was the indictment of 4 officers, 4 Mass State Police, right? For manslaughter, 1 for perjury. Lady's name was Jennifer Penton, I believe, and she actually worked with Brian Albert on Boston's Finest. Like the connections, that means nothing. I'm just saying she knows someone who knows somebody, and it's culture. That's what I was saying. And not like that they're connected in case related connections, but it's like, oh, okay. And so they've been indicted on this. There is still not an arraignment. And something that boiled my blood, Mr. Bederow, was the finding out that post commission, they've been suspended, right? Clearly, but they were suspended with pay. And I know that a lot of people were saying because of the unions, you get suspended with pay, etc. But per actual mass statute and law, if a police officer has been like indicted on a felony charges, different than misdemeanor, not convicted of, indicted on a felony, it is very rare for them not to be suspended without pay. Like, so I was just wondering, do you like any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, they're an indictment, although grand juries, I mean, everybody says it and everybody's become familiar with it, indict ham sandwiches. That's very different than just, an allegation that's thrown out there that, we think somebody did something. A grand jury heard evidence and voted an indictment. And, these are homicide indictments
Yes.
for manslaughter, for basically, recklessly causing the death of, another, I guess, cadet at that point, someone who was about to become a state trooper. The optics of them, especially in that agency, with all the problems that they've had, being suspended with pay is a terrible look. I know they don't even have a court date set, apparently. They haven't even surrendered. Again, Massachusetts does it in the weirdest way. In most places, when you would get an indictment, it would not be unsealed until court. There'd be no press conference before it happens. They would notify defense counsel for the troopers and other people and say, listen, there's been grand jury action, you've been indicted, you're going to need to appear in court on this day. And by the way, they would let them surrender. They would not go out and cuff them at 5 in the morning. They would say, come in like civilized people, but they would do that. And then the day of the court appearance, they would get permission from the court to unseal the indictment. That's when the DA, or in this case, the special prosecutor, because it's Massachusetts, it's always a special prosecutor,
Mm-hmm.
would issue whatever statement they're going to make. And then they would appear in court and off we go. To see it happen in this way, where it just gets announced, there's a press conference, but there's no court appearance, there's no arraignment date, there's no surrender. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
And on top, suspended with pay. It just means that the taxpayers are paying these people, and they're entitled to all due process
Of course.
and a vigorous defense. And these are tough cases. I mean, a manslaughter case where you're not charged with literally hitting someone or causing their injuries, but for the most part, just being so cavalier and so reckless in supervising whatever the hell they were doing with their fighting and boxing and all of that. Don't think for a minute that that's an open and shut case. It's not. I mean, that
Right.
can be very tricky for causation and what they knew or should have known and what a reasonable person would know and all of that. But having said that, they have been charged formally by a grand jury with essentially causing the death of Enrique, and probably a suspension with pay would be appropriate. A court date would be appropriate. And a surrender. I mean, it doesn't look serious when it's just announced and nothing happens.
Yeah. Right. Like that is another blunder almost because it feels like you had this entire Joe Early, the Worcester DA's office. Um, he recused, got the special prosecutor, did the whole rigmarole the way he was supposed to. They did the investigation. For them to come back with actual charges on 4 different troopers is newsworthy. Like, I mean, so newsworthy. I feel as though it almost is a slap in the face after almost a year and a half of an investigation, no answers, and then you just say, okay, now these people are on suspended with pay.
Well, I mean, in many ways, I'm surprised it's not a bigger story. I mean, not that it's a small
Yeah.
story, but I mean, indicting 4 active duty state troopers for causing the death of a cadet dying essentially in a boxing ring by getting his
Yes.
repeatedly and barbarically, beat up and presumably being thrown back into fight when he had probably been concussed. I don't know the full facts, but just was not, physically in the right condition to do so. And then one of them getting indicted for perjury. And I mean, this is just another black eye and stain on the state police. And I'm surprised it's not a bigger story, but it would be a bigger story if the indictment was unsealed. They showed up, were arraigned, and then there was a press conference and there were court proceedings. But in reality, it's just an announcement. These guys have been indicted, and then it's just kind of shoved to the side.
I,
Again, I don't understand full Massachusetts procedure, how they do things. That's not how this would work in most places.
yeah, and I think I do thank Ted Daniel for his hard work on this, though. He really did push, 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 and he's still bringing it up. And he's giving every step, everything that he can find, he is giving it to us, and I really appreciate him for that. Um, and I just pray for for the Delgado Garcia family. I know I have friends that were at UMass at the hospital that day, nurses, and they said, "I'm telling you, Mr. Bederow," and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I have to wait and see kind of what happens here." But I was like, "This really," they were like, "Kim, his injuries are just horrifying." And, again, this is a 25-year-old young man, like a cadet that is seemingly in great condition, almost made it to the end of the 91st RTT, almost to graduation. And there is something to be said that there was such a police presence, and nobody is talking about that. But that day, in that hospital, there were Mass State Police that were hovering over nurses, like being like in places that they just like wanted to know what was like being documented. And it's like, this is a HIPAA. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? You can't be over my shoulder, guy. But there was a lot that felt uncomfortable for staff that were working that day. What I got, and I trust it's a source that I don't know, it's alleged, but the nurses that were working there were just like, it was a really horrifying day. And to have to end up unpulling the plug there and allowing your loved one to go to God is just something that you never saw coming. And it shouldn't happen to anybody. And I hope that there is light just put on, exactly, that it just all comes out in the wash, no matter what. And no matter if there was culpability or criminal acts here, they should pay the price for what they did. No matter who you are, there is no protection just because you have a badge, or just because you have been in a culture that has thought it was okay for so long for hazing or whatever it was.
Yeah, and just the other side of the coin is, you can't go after them extra hard either, just because
Right.
they're state troopers and what a corrupt organization. They're individuals. They're entitled to due process. They're being charged. Presumably, they're going to get it, and then the facts go where the facts go, and let justice be done, whatever that means.
Yeah. And that's always just the goal. And also, on a different, switching gears to Epstein. We always talk, you and I, about, what's going on here. And since we spoke last, in the last 2 weeks, I mean, what a world. Things have been coming out, but nothing more, I think, shocking to me than was, I think, yesterday. Was it yesterday or was it the day before, of former Prince Andrew being arrested in connection to, like, the Epstein, like, files, right? They said it was about, not about I don't know, other people were reporting certain things, but it actually was in connection to that case, correct?
Well, it doesn't happen if these documents aren't released, which show disturbing things. Having said that, what he's being investigated for in the UK, I don't believe literally in terms of the charges that
Yeah.
allow them to take him in for the 48 hours or whatever it is they're allowed to do over there, does not have to do with sexual offenses. It has to do with an inappropriate, chummy relationship, sharing information with Epstein, which of course would show a disturbing relationship. I mean, why would British royalty
Mm,
be telling this, scumbag, pedophile, criminal anything to do with serious business? The same way, the lawyer in America that everyone sees that, used to work for, I guess she was in the Obama administration, sharing all kinds of things with him. I mean, this is weird, non-sexual stuff that showed the amount of access that Epstein had to powerful people. Now, will the investigation include sex offenses by Andrew? Absolutely. Make no mistake, he's a scumbag. He sexually assaulted women, engaged in activity that he shouldn't have. I'm sure they will look into that in the UK. I am sure they will look into that in other countries beyond the UK, which we don't need to get into right now. And I'm sure they will look at that in the US as well. Now, having said that, there is, it is disturbing that you see, the UK sees information and they act immediately.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it is, I don't want to get too deep into this, but it's disturbing that, in the US, that whether it be Andrew or many, many others, that has not yet happened.
Absolutely. And there was something that I like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and that was the Virginia, oh gosh, I'm gonna say her name wrong. Jeffrey? Is that
Too free.
Jeffrey? Jeffrey? Yeah. Her family released a statement, and it just, I was like, oh. And it said, at last today, our broken hearts have been lifted at the news that no one is above the law, not even royalty. Jeffrey's siblings said in a statement shared with CBS News on Thursday. On behalf of our sister Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, we extend our gratitude to the UK's Thames Valley Police for their
And
investigation and the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He was never a prince. For survivors everywhere, Virginia did this for you.
well, I mean, she, is the most well known of, the Epstein, Maxwell, Andrew, and others that we don't have to name today, uh, trafficking and whatnot. And, she went public. She publicly went after
Mhm.
Andrew. Everybody knows about the disastrous public statements Andrew tried to make years ago, how he started getting shoved aside by his, loyal others. Um, but whatever information that he was sharing, which led again to the ostensible basis to drag him in, those are the least of his problems.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. I mean, the photos that I saw of this man, like, I was appalled, Mr. Bederow. Like, appalled. I was like, "Wait a minute, what the f—" I was like, "Okay, I knew that there was—" I don't know what I thought I knew, but, like, what I have seen on Twitter, I was like, this is not what I
You,
even could have
you've,
imagined."
you've seen nothing.
Oh,
It's a lot worse than, I mean, there are allegations that you'll see on Twitter where, information has been released where certain people have gone to the FBI and alleged, this happened, and this could sound shocking. But you also have to understand that when somebody goes to the FBI and reports something,
mhm,
FBI agents fill out what's called a 302. That's just the name of the form. It's an
mhm,
interview report, and FBI agents are trained to document diligently, and they will write it down and they will memorialize it in a 302. That doesn't make it true or untrue. It
right,
doesn't mean they're editorializing what's true or not, but those 302s are amongst all of these reports that get thrown out in the public. So the problem with just mass dumping all of these documents and saying, oh, this person is in the Epstein files, which I hate that terminology,
I know.
um, that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. I mean, there are bad actors who are named in documents that have been released, and not all of those allegations are necessarily true either. Whether it relates to, the Clintons, other people,
Jay-Z, yeah.
whomever, and there are all kinds of people. Oh, this person's named in the in the files. If somebody's mentioned in an email about scheduling a meeting, I mean, people need to calm down. That's not proof of, oh my
Right.
God. I mean, look, in all fairness, and I haven't paid that much attention to this. I did see online maybe yesterday or the day before, a lot of people were talking. Michael Morrissey is mentioned in the Epstein files. Now, calm the hell down. Okay. I don't even know what that's about, but you should not assume that means without more, that there's a lot more going on. Okay. Before you should conclude that, well, if you're mentioned in a file, that somehow makes you involved in, you know, sex trafficking and whatnot. So that's not fair, even to people like that.
Mhm.
Now, in all fairness, I don't know how he's even referenced, but the mere reference doesn't mean anything. The other thing, people, in terms of what's going on in the real world today, as opposed to in the past, because Epstein's dead, um, there isn't some mass single organized conspiracy of where you know Jeffrey Epstein was the leader of this band of criminals and doing this. I mean, it's many more smaller conspiracies that really come down to rich and famous people know other rich and famous people, and they travel together, they get together, and they want to do things together. And a lot of these people, what they were doing way back when, their idea of let's get together and do things together would include, raping young women. That's true. But it's not like this is like some one grand thing where everyone's talking about it. These were crimes of convenience when they would get together, and whether it be in the US or places in Europe or other things. It's not some grand, sophisticated, Epstein running a ring. I mean, it's different.
Yeah. I don't know, it just feels like I felt as though it says a lot just for the the UK to take action before anything had was even under suspicion or, suspicion of misconduct, whatever it was. And I
There,
even really liked the royal family statement too. Like, you know,
well, they have no
Prince
choice. I
Charles,
mean,
yeah.
I'm not one of these follow the British royal family. What does it all mean? But having a little PR knowledge and how these things work. I mean, what are they supposed to do? They don't
Mm.
really have a choice but to throw this guy out, and to the extent that the royal family survives as a thing, which I guess is just purely symbolic and a matter of British pride anyway. I mean, it means nothing beyond that. To the extent that they're going to maintain any credibility, I mean, times are different. You can't just sweep it under the rug, and this is the problem. There's finally a reckoning of people who say we're not going to tolerate these rich, powerful scumbags going out and sexually abusing, innocent young women, men, whoever. And so that's a good part of this, that people finally have had enough, that no matter who you are, we're not going to tolerate that. And that ought to be a shot across the bow. I mean, if you can go after a defrocked prince to the royal crown in the UK, well, what does that mean? The ball's in the court of the Americans, okay? Because there are powerful people, politicians, entertainers, some of the most powerful people on earth, whether it be past or present. Um, what are we doing? It's time to act. And the other, the reality is, the way this has been handled publicly from the U.S. side, it's bad. I mean, it's just, this is a clumsy process, and virtually nobody believes that everything is being put out, or why is this, happening, but I don't believe this, and what about you're protecting this person, and if you're a Republican, well, you're just attacking Democrats, and if you're a Democrat, you're attacking this person, and I mean, this has been handled so poorly when it really ought to be, you know let justice be done, though the heavens may fall. I mean, it's that bad. And the people that ultimately, if this was being done properly, and hopefully it will, it's going to bother a lot of people.
Yeah. I see that if there is, or it feels like if there, when this comes to fruition, God willing, it does, for justice and only just for the purpose of justice alone, I think that it'll probably, like you say, Mr. Bederow, from me seeing just the photos and the videos and whatever that I have, which is on a minimal basis because I can't go in and sign in and actually do it. Like I'm just seeing clips because I get like triggered by it for some reason when I saw how young or when I saw the like children laying like down, like just seeing like children and like some sort of like whatever kind of playful whatever you were doing on the floor. Get off the floor with a
Listen,
kid. That's not your own. You weirdo.
obviously that stuff is disturbing and gross and perhaps illegal, depending on what followed in that particular circumstance.
Hmm.
What you need to understand is that what really happened, at least with some other people, is 1,000 times worse than just taking pictures of lying on the floor and smiling, whether it's with a young child or not.
Mm.
It's I still don't even know if the people are fully prepared to grasp it, because it's shocking on so many levels when you think about the people involved, the level of depravity and abuse involved, the people's station in life, uh, the time frame from when this happened, and what their station in life was. That, like, wow, is this really happening right now? It's shocking.
Somebody wrote in the chat, Mick Jagger. Blink twice if Mick Jagger.
I, all I've said to you in the past is my
Your
music
favorite.
is dramatically altered
I know.
from the past. And even news this week of certain musicians, very, very.
What? I didn't hear. What happened? What?
Just follow the news. It's just
Just follow the news. Oh, well, sorry, I missed it.
well,
Um,
the new albums come out and
oh,
not, but it's again from what I'm familiar with, because again, I don't profess to know half of
yeah, yeah.
percent, but it's politicians, it's musicians, it's actors, it's business moguls. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and
Yeah.
um, it's men, it's women, it's sick.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is sick, and I am disgusted. I don't know. The more that we see, is the more I am appalled because it was like I thought I knew, or I thought I knew what I thought I knew, and then it's
You'll
just like
be
keeps
you'll be
going.
more appalled when you know who and what.
Oh gosh.
And again, there are various questions that have to be resolved about whether that ever does become public, and whether the government ultimately files charges to make it some degree of public, or whether certain victims speak out, or other people with platforms speak out. But really, one of the things you see online, which people need, there were real victims here and who've been traumatized, and
Yes.
you can't get past that. And you turn on the news and it's there. And for people who trivialize or minimize, or we're entitled to this and I want to know this, or throwing out this publicly, um, just factor in the people who actually suffered at the hands of these monsters and how it impacts them to have this just talked about so frequently, recklessly, or people who make jokes or post memes online, or see certain people make public statements denying they have any knowledge of anything when people know that that's a goddamn lie. Um, just think of those people before everybody says, "Oh, we're entitled to all this information." It's more nuanced than that. There are, not every victim wants to be, you know, or has the ability to be like Virginia was, or some of these other ones, and it's complicated. It's not as easy as just saying throw it all out there and let's see everything. If you saw
No,
everything, it would harm victims.
absolutely, and that is so important for, like, trauma-informed care, and having this on a 24-hour news cycle, and for the victims and survivors, rather, um, you know, that triggering of their of what complex PTSD that they may have from it, or, um, the inability for people to have humanity for others is on display when it is a hunger that, like, you're demanding this information and you want it all to come out without having that sensitivity, um, for humans that not only lived this, but now are re-traumatized, having to see it all play out in the way in which it has, and in a fumbling way in which our government specifically has handled it, right? So this shouldn't be, in my opinion, controversial in any way, shape, or form. I want to know, I don't give a shit who you're affiliated with, what what is at the end of your name, an R, a D, an independent. I don't care. All I want to know is that bad guys and bad girls whom have preyed upon the youth.
It can be very traumatizing
Yeah.
for a victim of this to see, for example, several months ago,
Yeah.
where someone like Ghislaine Maxwell makes a sworn statement to Todd Blanche and lied. And let's be clear, she perjured herself. She perjured herself. And for a victim who knows that, to see that, and then see that she gets transferred to a cushier prison and now she's screaming, yelling, refusing to testify, where she can't control the narrative, and then says, "Oh, but I will exonerate all these people, including the president, if you do this." I mean, who the hell is she to make those demands? I mean, does she take cream and sugar with that? I mean, it's disgusting. And you saw some
Yeah.
other people last week going on camera doing a press tour, in anticipation of some upcoming testimony this week, making statements of, I don't know anyone, I don't really know these people. And if you're a victim and you know things and you see that, I mean, it's just grotesque. But this is the way these powerful people have always been. They will say anything to avoid accountability. And for years, it was never a concern. I mean, this is a recent thing, right? This is
Right.
only something that's happening in recent times where the public has finally decided enough is enough and there ought to be full accountability. But the bad actors from years ago, they're right back into the same, denial, and everyone will believe us and we can say whatever we're going to say to get out of this. And, not anymore.
Not today, Satan, and not in 2026. Okay. All right. On that note,